Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
I think the first step is to understand you deserve help. You need to shift that mindset. You are not meant to do this on your own. You shouldn't be doing it on your own. You also have to be okay with people not showing up for you that you expected to show up.
I'm Dr. Tina Kaiser, and as Leah likes to say, I'm the sciencey one.
And I'm Dr. Leah Sherman, and I'm the Cancer Insider.
And we're two naturopathic doctors who practice integrative cancer care.
But we're not your doctors.
This is for education, entertainment, and informational purposes only.
Do not apply any of this information without first speaking to your doctor.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast by the hosts and their guests are solely their own.
Welcome to the Cancer Pod. What if caregiving for someone with cancer didn't mean losing yourself in the process? Today, I'm joined by Charlotte Bayala, host of the award-winning The Cancer Caregiver Podcast. Charlotte is a powerful voice, turning the often unseen work of caregiving into real, practical support. Her show blends emotional honesty with actionable strategies, helping thousands of caregivers feel seen, set boundaries, breathe easier, and care for themselves while caring for someone with cancer. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate it.
I am really excited that we were able to connect. I think that having a show from the caregiver perspective is really important because that is one of the target audiences for us. We want caregivers to be able to find tips to help support their loved ones, but we haven't really touched on caregivers giving themselves support. And you are the perfect guest for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard. You can't do everything all the time. So I love that, a lot of us are able to collaborate and work together and share, having someone on to speak to caregivers is important. And I love it when cancer organizations and cancer podcasts are open to seeing that because sometimes it's hard to get the message across. So I'm really happy to be able to be here today.
What was your driving need to have this podcast and to have this conversation?
Yeah, it was because I needed something for myself, especially when I first became a caregiver. I care for my husband who has cancer. We've been doing this now for close to 13 years, so over a decade. And I started the first show, which was actually Love Your Caregiving Life, when I felt like I could give, right? And then what I wanted to give was what I needed. So, and what I didn't realize at the beginning was the podcast was what I still needed because as I was writing and recording, I found myself processing in ways that I didn't realize I needed to. And then cancer got a little bit more difficult. And that's when I switched over to cancer-specific caregiver content. And that's when I created the Cancer Caregiver Podcast because, again, I was looking for something that I needed to hear. I needed to see myself in something else. I needed to hear that what I was going through was what other people were going through, and I couldn't really find that. And so I made it. And so the whole purpose is to let cancer caregivers know that all the things that they're thinking of, they're going through, they're experiencing, they're all very private and they're all particular to their own circumstances, but they're all very similar to what everyone else is going through. And since we don't share because we're worried about being judged or what other people say, or we just simply don't have the time or the energy to talk about it with anyone, we're not seeing that we can support each other simply by sharing our experiences. Because we can name and talk about those things, it takes a lot of the power out of it. So that's why I created it. I wanted to use my caregiving experience plus also my over a decade's experience of being a yoga and meditation teacher to first name what we're going through and then give a tool that they can use to help themselves through it.
And For myself, as someone who has been on both sides, as both the cancer patient and the cancer caregiver, and again, this is my take on it. I
Mhm.
found being a caregiver to be so much harder
Yeah.
than a patient because there's that, again, for me,
Mhm.
there's that sense of helplessness.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for myself, I just had to get through it. I just had to get through treatment,
Mhm.
and when I was taking care of my mother, I mean, there's that dynamic in the first place,
Yeah.
being the child and taking care of your parent,
Mhm.
but there was so much I couldn't control. Not that I could
Yeah.
control things for myself, but with my mother, it was a lot. It is so difficult, and there's all these emotional layers, and
Mhm.
so, yeah, I wish that I knew about your podcast back
Oh,
then because
thank you.
for anyone who has not listened, it is a wonderful podcast. They're these short 15-minute episodes,
Mhm.
so it's easily digestible.
Mhm.
It's easy to fit into your busy day, on your drive or, before bed, and as you can tell, Charlotte's voice is just so soothing.
Oh.
It's really wonderful. Yeah, I think it would have been something that would have been a really helpful tool because of that, because I
Mhm.
found that sense of helplessness and not finding time to take care of me because I
Mhm.
was so busy taking care of her.
Mhm. Yeah, and we all that is not uncommon. And so I find that a lot of times caregivers that I speak to say the same thing, but with a little bit of regret and a lot of guilt because they even thought that they deserved to be able to care for themselves, but just didn't get to do it, right? And so there's a lot of emotions and a lot of miscommunicated role um, messages that we get when we become caregivers that, people continue to throw at us that aren't fair. And then it makes it harder for us to care for ourselves in the first place. Like we're supposed to be selfless and we're supposed to keep going until we completely break down because and it's not something that someone will come up to you and say, "Oh, guess what? You're a caregiver starting today, and we expect you to completely live your life without contenting to any of the things that you need. And you're meant to not find happiness ever again because now your only focus is to be a caregiver." No one comes out and says that, but it's in the actions, it's in the expectations, it's in the how when you're caring for someone, everyone checks in with how that person is doing instead of how you are. It's in the people not showing up to help without asking you what you need, just coming in and doing things for you. And so that's why it's hard. And then I think that, once you show up somewhere and you're looking like crap, someone will oftentimes tell you, "Oh, you know what? You should really care for yourself." And you're left with, well, what does that mean? How does that where do you think I'm going to find the time to actually figure out how to care for myself and then actually do it instead of just, seeing a loved one or a friend and then showing up to their house the next day and like just come with coffee and say, "Look, I'm going to be here. You have this much time. Do something for yourself. Go take a bath, go take a nap, go take a walk. Leave and yell in your car." Like whatever it is that you need to do to just take a moment for yourself, that's what I'm here for. And so when you don't get those messages by the way people interact with you when you become a caregiver, then it makes it really hard for you to find the time to care for yourself. And the problem is then you lose time with the person that you give up everything to help, right? So you don't get those moments where you can just relax with them and enjoy them because you are so focused on all the things that you have to do and you're trying to keep up with everything that hasn't been done. And it becomes so overwhelming that you miss those tiny moments that are the things that you have left when your caregiving role is done.
So, do you have any tips on how someone who is a caregiver can ask for help?
Mhm.
I mean, because I think that's the hard part. It's like, "No, no, no, I've got this, I've got this."
Yeah.
It's very similar in that way to being a cancer patient where you're like, "Just no, I've got this under control."
Yeah.
Um, but Yeah, any sort of recommendations that you have for somebody who's not used to asking for help to
Yeah,
ask for
that's
help?
what makes it hard is to help people ask for help who don't like asking for help. That's the hard part. I think the first step is to understand you deserve help, right? You need to shift that mindset. You are not meant to do this on your own. You shouldn't be doing it on your own. And you also have to be okay with people not showing up for you that you expected to show up. And so when I'm usually helping caregivers figure out how to create a team or at least find one person to help them do something, it's what people do you have in your life that you think will help and what are they good at? Because if you ask your best friend who loves to bake and cook to come and help mow your lawn every Saturday for the rest of the summer, your friend might not show up because, first of all, they don't know how to use a lawnmower and they hate being out in the sun, So you have to really play to a person's strengths. Unfortunately, we can't just say, I need help with yard work. Can anyone come do this for me? Right. So if you aren't a person who has an organized way to have people see what you need help with, then what I always suggest is find that person that is good at what you need right now. So let's say your loved one is not having a really comfortable time with their illness. If they have cancer, you maybe have a point of time coming up where they have a surgery and you normally try to hold it together without trying to fall apart, which is generally not a good juggling act to have in the first place. So think about the things that you need. You need meals, especially when you get home. You need someone to help with your child if you have a young child that needs, extra attention because this is also a stressful time for them. Maybe you do need chores around the house done or things to upkeep. So think about the things that you can actually let go of, which is also hard for us because we don't want to release any control that we actually have over anything and be okay with it not being perfect. Everything has to be good enough when you have to pull back from the things that you normally are in charge of because caregiving has to be 90% of what you're doing right now. And then find those people. Reach out to an office team or to friends and say, look, I don't want to deal with like the crappy freezer meals that my freezer's still full of, right? You know what? If you want to help, how about if everyone pulls in to put together a gift card for ordering out and I can do that? Or you have someone that loves organizing things. Give them a list of things that you need help with and ask them to help organize. So it takes a little bit of extra work because we're not used, especially if you're not used to having people help you or you don't normally have people who just naturally reach out and help. And I think the problem is we don't want to put people out, right? The problem is that people want to help. If you think about it, when you help someone, if even when you're leaving a store, you smile at a stranger, you get this feeling of fulfillment, even if it's for a fleeting second. It makes you feel good to help somebody, right? So think of it this way. If you don't ask someone in your life that genuinely cares about you to help you, then you are denying them the opportunity to have that feeling, right? If you don't ask for help, and there have been studies that show people stop offering help after a while. And that usually is at the same time where we're finally deciding that we understand what we actually can help with.
Right.
So you have all these people asking you, what can I do? What can I do? You're like, I have no idea. And then you wake up one morning, you're like, oh man, the next time someone asks me if I need help, I'm going to ask them to help me with this. And everyone has spontaneously stopped asking. It's because they are assuming, since you've already said, no, I'm okay, which we know is pretty much a bold-faced lie, you will ask them. They're waiting for you to ask because they don't want to feel like they're imposing, that they're being too pushy. By continually asking you, if you keep saying, no, I really don't know what I would need help with. Now, that's not to say that there isn't some ownership that they need to be taking for just showing up and helping, right? Because when you put it on another person and ask them, let me know how I can help, you're just creating more work for them. So that's not fair for caregivers. For someone listening who knows a caregiver, there are some very general things that all caregivers need help with. Do the thing that you can do for them. So it's not an easy task, but it's essential, because if you want to be the type of caregiver you would like to be attentive, to not be a person that's reactionary because you're overwhelmed, to actually be able to notice when the person that you care for takes a moment to smile or like chuckles for a second or has like a lighthearted moment, you want to be present for that. And if your head isn't here, it's off in the to-dos and the things that have happened and that haven't happened yet, then you're going to miss all those things. So there's a lot of reasons why. You just have to find the one reason why that's compelling enough for you to get into that stage of being uncomfortable to be able to ask someone to help them.
There's something that you said in one of your episodes that really, I don't know, I wrote it down, so it really resonated with me. No one cares if you care for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's harsh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real. Because if anyone cared, if you cared for yourself, then we wouldn't be talking about caregivers caring for themselves, right? Because everyone that is a caregiver, what are we up to now? Over 65 million caregivers in the United States alone. If we all had societal frameworks put in place for us to care for ourselves, we wouldn't be trying to figure it out still, right? There are ways that we can be given the buffer and the opening to have the freedom to say, I need to take a vacation, just me. I need an hour away from the house. I need this. I need to do this constantly. I need to do this occasionally. And we don't ask for it because we feel like we can't. And that means the message that we're getting is that you're supposed to just figure it out on your own. And people don't really care until you need care, right? So everyone's just assuming you have it all put together, because that's kind of the mask that we put on. That's what happens when we say we don't need help or yes, I'm okay. And so until you need help yourself, people really aren't going to care. No one's going to make the time for you. There's never going to be the perfect moment to take time for yourself. You know, oftentimes we say, I'll wait until after the next oncology appointment. I'll wait until after their treatment. I'll wait until things get better. There's always going to be something else. So people don't really care if you care for yourself. The person that really matters to care for that is you. And until we can come to a place personally where we can own that and stop waiting for other people to make space for us to do it, is when things for us as caregivers will get a lot better.
So with my experience of working in cancer centers, we've had mind-body counselors who offered their services to caregivers to talk. Is this something, only because I only have a limited view of what happens in cancer centers, is this something that is common, that there are people at the cancer center to speak with about, their loved one? I mean, is this...
I have not found that to be true from my experience. And we have moved around a lot since my husband was first diagnosed. And not once have I been offered an appointment with even a social worker. I have had to advocate at one point for my husband, and that brought on a phone call with a social worker, which then offered, different support services, but for the cancer patient. And I don't think that there are a lot of places, like if you are currently in a place where your loved one is being treated and you also have support services, like that's a unicorn in the whole system. And we've gone to really big, important cancer centers. There is a changing tide in that thought. There's a lot of different people who are working towards having more services for caregivers, but it's not normal. Maybe if I were having a really difficult time as a caregiver and I maybe inserted myself into a conversation with an oncologist for my husband, they might have relayed that information to a nurse who maybe would, like it's not freely given. And you have to, I would say, in the places that I've been that have had really good doctors, they're focused on treating the patient and not the person who's literally helping that patient live the other 364 days of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I think that's, I don't even know if there are, I'm assuming there are social workers available
Mhm.
at all cancer centers.
Mhm.
I didn't realize how, unusual that was to
Yeah.
actually have that service that could be provided to actually have that conversation, with someone who kinda sees what you're going through, at least on the
Yeah.
cancer center side.
Exactly.
Okay, I wanna rewind a little bit and talk about your background. So, you mentioned that you are a yoga teacher and
Mhm.
you are certified to teach meditation as well.
Mhm.
What brought you to that, and how, I guess, fortuitous is that actually played into your oh, I hate this word, your journey into
Yeah.
becoming this, this advocate for caregivers?
Yeah, yoga happened before cancer, thankfully. And actually, I became a yoga student because I had been a martial arts practitioner and I tore an ACL and had to have surgery. And I was looking for something that I could do movement wise, and yoga was it. And I never left. And so I went through multiple trainings. I'm a 500-hour certified yoga instructor. I've worked with a lot of teachers and have other certifications. And it just was how I felt most aligned with spending my time and helping other people. And you would think that when my husband was diagnosed, that I came out of this diagnosis just like calm and relaxed and totally put together. But it literally pulled the rug out from underneath my feet and I did nothing. I was teaching yoga and meditation classes full time when my husband was diagnosed. And the only yoga I did was when I was in those rooms with the people, teaching them how to make it through things that I was currently going through personally. And as soon as I left those rooms, I would move back into an overwhelmed caregiver close to burnout. And it's the turnaround was I had been under so much pressure and worry was becoming a really big problem for me. And I sent a message to my doctor and I said, this is not normal. I shouldn't be walking around acting as if I have like a Hallmark commercial running full time in my brain. Like I was crying at anything. And she said, "Well, you're going through a lot. My first suggestion would be for you to try meditating." And it was the advice that angered me the most. I was like, this person's telling me to meditate. I teach people how to meditate 8 hours a day. What right does she have to, like, I was angry because her advice was right, because it was what I was
Right.
teaching other people to do. But the important part was that caregiving in cancer made it close to impossible for me to hold on to the things that I was already doing, that I had skills on being able to teach people. And a lot of time with that being what I did for myself completely fell apart. And that's one of the reasons why I started this, is because I figured if I had all the tools and tons of experience, not only practicing meditation and yoga and just, coping skills for stress and anxiety, if all of that fell apart for me, how hard is it? And how ridiculous is it for someone to tell a caregiver, yeah, you should try meditating? Because how are they going to figure out how to do that?
Right.
And how is that supposed to work? And honestly, meditation never was the same. I used to love hour-long meditations, so many different kinds. And when I sat down to try to do the same thing that I had been doing before, it never worked. It got too quiet. I had too many, we all stuff everything down. And once it gets quiet and you're just you and a mat or a chair, it all wants to get your attention. I had to shift what I was doing and I had to figure out how to do that. And so to expect someone who's never done that before to figure it out on their own, I think is disrespectful. People need help to figure these things out. And so all of that experience, all of the thousands of hours of me teaching, and then on top of it, my experience as a caregiver, which all of our experiences are different, but ultimately are tied into the same issues, is what I bring to everything that I provide, whether it's the podcast or if it's a workshop I'm doing or if it's me as a speaker. It never changes. That is the main goal, is this is what I have, this is what I know, and this is what I know to be true because I've been trained in it. I just want to make sure that it's easier for a caregiver to understand how they can maybe take one thing and bring it into their day so that they can have just these small moments for themselves. So it's not linear. Caregiving, I feel, is like grief. Like there are moments where it feels like you got it, and then all of a sudden something hits you. So I think that we all need, when we're talking about caring for ourselves, we need what we have running all the time, like our rituals, the things that we instinctually do, the things that we do for fun, but then also the holy crap moments, right? Which takes more. Like there has to be a different plan for that. And so just understanding that things are always fluctuating in the person that you're caring for's life, things also have to fluctuate for how you care for yourself.
So how does somebody who has never meditated,
Mm-hmm.
never even thought about meditation, what is a way that you would introduce them into a world that they would never have considered in the first
Yeah.
place?
Yeah. I would say breath work.
Okay.
All of the things, I have some extra episodes of the podcast that is literally just guided breath work. I would never ask someone to sit with a mantra or an affirmation on their own. I feel like a meditation, it has to do with what your strengths are. And if you've never done it before, how do you know what your strengths are, right? So in your mind, our minds are not attentive at all. Like we want everything in 6-second
Right.
pieces, right? So I used to have people sit and work on just focusing on their breath for 15 minutes. We're down to 5. I'd love it if someone could do it for a minute. Like if you actually sit after listening to this and only focus on breathing for a minute, it could feel like 1,000 hours. It depends on who you are. It could be painful. It could be what you needed to do, because when we stop to meditate, our minds are not trained for it. And it's not about what practice can I start to remember? What can I memorize? It's you have to train your brain to know, oh, this is when I have to shut down just for a little bit. Because as soon as it gets quiet, your mind goes crazy trying to just take over. Your brain wants to work on stuff. So I start off people with literally just a deep breathing, a belly breath. Sometimes people counting works better. So we'll count breaths. Like I'll take someone starting from 20 and mentally they'll just count each breath going down to 1. Almost always you get to 15 and you lose your count, and then,
You start over again?
you start over again. You lose the calm right there. So really, I mean, for me, the beginning for meditation is really focusing on breath, and mostly because you can do it anywhere. You don't have to be somewhere specific. You don't have to be sitting in a specific pose. You can be out walking. You can focus on your breath while you're running on a walk.
Driving?
Yes, standing in line at the supermarket, or while someone who's you don't really like is talking to you and you really need to like control your emotions. Like there are moments where I'll like if we're like at a party or something and I'll walk away from a conversation I'm having, and after like when we're, when you debrief with your spouse, and my husband will say, "So I can tell you really didn't like the conversation you were in with so and so." And I'm like, "How could you?" And he's like, "'Cause you started deep breathing." So so it helps, but the thing is, like, once you know how to use your breath as a tool, it is so magical because there's so many different ways that you can use it to help yourself in the moment, to help yourself become more resilient. You start to find yourself like things that you would catch your breath because you're angry or frustrated. If you are now familiar with your breath and know how to use it as a tool, then that's when you're like, "Oh, I just need to take a longer exhale, just a couple of longer exhales." And because it's all about our nervous systems. So meditation is all about getting your nervous system to know that you're not under attack, that you can release and let go. And once you can learn how to tap into that, and you feel like meditation is something that you want to explore further, there's so many different kinds that if you find the one that you love, can make you feel night and day different than when you started in less than 5 minutes, I would say. If I sat down with anyone, I for sure could get them to feel completely different when they open their eyes than when they close them. It's just what we need.
It's such a stress reaction too in a stressful situation just to hold your
Mhm.
breath, like you
Mhm.
said. And yeah, that completely is so dysregulating to your nervous system.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that reminder to breathe is fantastic. It's
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic. And that is part of your Scanxiety toolkit that you
It
have.
is. Yeah. Yeah. Scanxiety is something that we all encounter in the cancer world. It literally is the difference in how you feel moving into the appointment times. So if you know that your husband or your spouse or the person you're caring for has an oncology appointment coming up, it's that that on top of everything you're feeling, the overwhelm, the anxiety and stress, it's that extra that you feel. It's the extra worry, the extra anxiety. And oftentimes, I know for me, when it's easy to close yourself off from everything else that's happening and you start to really find yourself in your head. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can help yourself to get through that so that you can enjoy time leading up to appointments that literally could change your life, right? Those oncology appointments, all it takes is a sentence, good or bad. We have to change the treatment. It wasn't working, or the treatment's been working fantastically. Now we can go into this, but you never know. And that's what causes all of this anxiety, which has been now given the term Scanxiety. And so in the Scanxiety toolkit, it's literally just 3 tools. It's a square breath. It's a grounding exercise that you can do anywhere, especially if you're sitting in an oncology office, which we know you're going to most likely be there an extra hour because I've never met an oncologist that's on time, which I appreciate when I have extra questions, right? But it doesn't help the stress when you're sitting there waiting. And then a tool that you can use, when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you just can't go back to sleep. And so those are all audio files and a PDF. And Square Breath really is the easiest one, though, out of all of them.
And we've talked about square breathing, box breathing before on the podcast, I think. I believe we have. But can you go a little bit into that? Because I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's one of my favorite ways of not only grounding, but just kind of relaxing and
Yeah.
focus and all of that.
So square breathing, what you do is your breath in and your breath out, and the space in between those 2 breaths are the same length. So if, let's say, you breathe in for a count of 3, which you just mentally count, and then you hold for a count of 3, and you let it out for a count of 3, and you hold for a count of 3, and you keep just going through the cycle. I think the important thing about square breathing is that you don't want it to feel like you are gradually reaching for breathing, right? So oftentimes, people will say a square breath, but it's 4-4-4-4 or
Mhm.
5, right? So breath in of 5 might feel okay, but holding for 5 might be difficult for someone.
Right.
And then you have to hold that exhale as you slowly let it back out. And then you got to wait 5 more counts before you could, it just slowly starts to, I've watched people and if it's friends of mine, it's kind of funny because I can see the spiral happening. So I think that the important thing is to understand that if you feel like you don't have control of your breath, that does the opposite of what it should do, right? So with square breathing, find the rate that works for you. I normally start people at 3. You breathe in for a count of 3. You hold for a count of 3. You let it out for a count of 3. You hold for a count of 3. And what it does is it regulates your nervous system so that your body begins to move into the rest and digest, that parasympathetic nervous system that literally allows so many different functions of your body to actually run better. Digestion, for sure. Your diaphragm moving and hitting nerves that our bodies need for our brain to know that we're safe. And it works in so many different instances. It works when you're anxious. It works when you're feeling frustrated or angry. It works when there's worry. It kind of brings you out of whatever emotional state you're in, because if you're breathing in and out, sure, we're used to that. It's the holding in the middle that you really have to think about. And so it is the easiest way to bring your full attention to breathing, because we don't instinctually hold our breath in between bringing it in and letting it back out again. So it's what I use often. Like if people have a lot of trouble with anxiety in general, when you have those moments where the announcement pops up on your phone that the CT scan is in 2 days, like that feeling that it gives you, that's where square breathing really helps, because you can pull it out whenever you want. You always have it. It's just learning how to think of using it.
And I have recommended that to patients
Mm,
before their scans or when they're laying in, the MRI
yeah.
or, the CT scanner. And, that it's in itself for a lot of people, it's very claustrophobic. And so that is something that is a tool that I used with a lot of my patients.
Mm-hmm.
And what I always told them was, and maybe it's urban legend, but I saw it on several articles, is that the Navy SEALs were taught
They do. Yeah.
this
Mm-hmm.
before they go on a mission.
Yeah.
And so I always said, if it works for the Navy SEALs,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna work for you.
It also helps if you can't fall asleep,
Mhm.
which a lot of people don't think about breathing helping you fall asleep, but any kind of focused breathing, but definitely square breath is extremely helpful if you're just laying there and you can't fall asleep. But yeah, if the Navy SEALs can do it, it's always interesting and mm, entertaining when I see the regular world, so to speak, learn that there are some breathing techniques that people have been doing for centuries that actually really work well.
You mean the non-yoga,
Yeah,
non-meditation
the
world,
non-yoga.
which is, a lot of people. It's most
Yes.
people, I would say.
So when people come up to me, when they are introduced, or they know that I'm like the breathwork person, they're like, "Oh my goodness, I just saw the Navy SEALs do square breathing, and I tried it and it was amazing." And I'm like, "Geez, so the Navy SEALs have to do something for you to learn how to I love that that it's being proven
Right,
that it works.
right.
And okay, it's a backup that maybe we need. I don't know, but
It's validation for them,
it
right? Like, if
is.
their favorite quarterback did it, if they talked about it at a press conference, then they'd be like, "Oh,
That's what we
yeah."
need to do. We need spokespeople for breathing from
from the
It's
celebrity, not the influencers, but
right. But no, it is. And that just shows how powerful square breathing is, that a whole dedicated, like very focused minded people like the Navy SEALs use all the time to keep their composure, to be able to adapt to, you know, continuously changing surroundings. Then I think then it's worth it to try it when you're sitting in an oncology office and you need to really slow down what's happening in front of you.
right. And focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how can somebody download the Scanxiety Toolkit?
Yeah, they can go to cancercaregiverpodcast.com/tools. And if they just go to cancercaregiverpodcast.com, they'll find everything there.
All the episodes and
All the
everything.
episodes, anytime there's anything new, it'll all be there. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we sign off?
No, I'm just really happy that everyone is listening. Look forward to anyone that, signs up for the newsletter, the Scanxiety Toolkit, to say hi. You can leave a voice message for me on my website if that's something you want to do. I love getting those. It's just anything that I can do to help or to listen to. I'm here.
And like I mentioned, I started listening to the podcast after we connected, and it's really great.
Thank you.
It's so needed.
Yeah.
I think to have someone give a voice for the caregivers, and it's not just for cancer caregivers, it's for
Mhm.
anyone. And I think, as generations who are more open to listening to podcasts as we are aging and we're becoming caregivers to our parents and,
Mhm.
to our, other loved ones. Yeah, this is such an important resource for people. So I'm really glad that we are able to connect.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tina, I really wish that something like this existed when I was my mom's caregiver, because a lot of the things that she talks about in her podcast, it's so true.
Yeah. And, we talk about cancer because we are the Cancer Pod, but it's so relevant across the spectrum of caregiving because especially our age group, right? We're in our 50s. A lot of us have a parent or two who need care. And so caring for yourself during that time when some people have children as well, so they're kind of sandwiched between their parents and their kids, and there's a lot going on, and self-care falls by the wayside because it gets, to be the last thing you think about. So it's so important, and I'm so glad she's around to give those tools, like the toolkit, which is pretty cool. It's pretty simple, straightforward, but it's like so many foundational things, right? It
Right.
might be simple, but you have to execute, and then it's useful. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Well, it's interesting that she did start her podcast with just a generic kind of caregiver podcast and then focused in on cancer because that is what she knows best, having, the fact that she's been taking care of her husband for over 10 years. I saw a post that she did, how she was talking about getting ready to go talk to people at Podcast Movement, meet people and introducing yourself as someone who has a cancer caregiver podcast. And people just kind of think it's a real bummer, because of the word cancer. And doesn't that kind of sound familiar? People kind
Yeah.
of think that our podcast is a bummer because we're the Cancer Pod.
Right. People don't know it's hard to hit play when you're just about to hear about cancer. And I think that is a hurdle. And, you and I have discussed it. Do we change our name? Is that actually
Right.
helping people not want to hit play because we have cancer in the title? But that's what we do. That's what we're honest about. And you know what? Cancer is a fact of life for a lot of people, whether it's themselves or their loved ones, like we talk about in this episode, or you talked about in this episode, I should say, not we. That was the royal we.
The royal
Because we're a team, Leah, even when I'm not there.
That's right. That's right. But I think, taking the scary out of, cancer is scary. Absolutely. But when you're in it, you don't want to constantly live in that fear. Or if, whether it is, your child you're taking care of or yourself or whatever, whoever it is, there are moments of fear. But then something like this resource, the podcast, that Scanxiety Toolkit, which is for more than just a caregiver. It gives you these tools to kind of work through that and continue, the things that you need to do or that you want to do.
Right. Right. And, I'm going to put myself in that category of people I do not ask for help. I am a me, DIY person to a fault for sure. So I get that. But I really like when she framed it in a way that wasn't just being selfish. You're doing it for other people who care about you or the person you're caring for, giving them something they know how to do and that they do well. So if someone's really good at logistics, having them help you with your logistics or handing over the meal train to them or however you want to do it, but looking at people and saying, okay, what's in their wheelhouse?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help them help us? Because people want to be useful. I mean, it's one of those things that I've noticed as I get older is being of service is rewarding in itself, right? We build community, we feel of service, it gives people purpose in their lives. And so helping other people you're actually giving them an opportunity. You're not taking so much as you're giving. So I like the way she framed that. That really resonated. Something I should keep in mind myself, too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Not that I'm an active caregiver right now. So let's be clear. I'm not.
No, but just in so many aspects of our life. I mean, outside of caregiving, outside of being a cancer patient or survivor is just, asking for help.
Yeah.
We get overwhelmed in our day, trying to do it all. And that's both of us, right?
That's
we
right.
we were just talking about that before I got on, we started recording.
Yes.
Trying to do it all and just being able to ask for help. That's such a small thing. And that people do, like you said, people do want to help.
Mm-hmm.
And so why not give them those warm fuzzies?
Yes.
You're gifting somebody the warm fuzzies.
Yes, it's mutually beneficial.
So if you like this episode and you want to hear more, then subscribe to our podcast.
Yes, or join our membership. We've got 3 different levels of membership. You can join us. Take a look at that on our website, which there's a link to in the episode notes.
You can also leave us a voice message. Go to our website, thecancerpod.com, and click on the right. There should be a little microphone, and tell us what you think of this or any other episode, or just ask us a question or say hi, introduce yourself.
Mm-hmm. We'll give you a shout out on the show.
And on that note, I'm Dr. Leah Sherman.
And I'm Dr. Tina Kaiser.
And this is The Cancer Pod.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening to The Cancer Pod. Remember to subscribe, review, and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media for updates. And as always, this is not medical advice. These are our opinions. Talk to your doctor before changing anything related to your treatment plan. The Cancer Pod is hosted by me, Dr. Leah Sherman, and by Dr. Tina Kaiser. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. See you next time. Professional. All right, be serious.
Okay. This is going to be hard now.
How long have we known each other?
Forever, it seems.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.